Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Thanks for tuning in. I want to get some, I never do this right, so I'm going to get some of my housework, laundry work, housekeeping, I don't know what they call it, where I tell you things like you can take my tarot class at paranormalkaren.com. It's been doing great. I'm very proud of it. Also, you can book a reading there at karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com. And I have a new CD out, and there will be a link to the CD in the show notes, if I remember, or you can just find it on my new website. It's where I do tarot and comedy from the stage together, and it was a Valentine's show, and it was really good, and it's 45 minutes. I think it's only $5 because I had a little bit of sound issue, but a wonderful sound guy fixed it. All good. So, folks, let's get right to it. I'm so excited. Shanna Gillette is with me here today, and I met her on the Facebook, and we had some interactions, and then I started listening to her podcast called The Infinite Unfolding, and I had to get a hold of her right away. I want to talk about everything with her, and in the last part, Shannon, I want to talk about that podcast that fascinated me so, that started with edibles and hiking. So, Shannon, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good, Karen. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Now there's the podcast. You're a photographer, okay, and and your other website is Yoga and More. Be Myself Yoga and More. Just Be Yoga and More. Did I get
you got
close?
It's it's Just Be. So it's technically Just Be Health and Wellness is the name of my little company. I teach yoga and conscious movement, and I call myself a mindfulness and movement teacher. We can get more into that later, but yeah.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. It's endless, the things I can talk about with you. So, because I was looking through your website and that podcast and listening to the other ones. So, first off, this is where we always begin. I used to listen to other interviews do this and go, I would never do that, but I have to do it. Tell me about, I go, well, that's why everyone's been doing it all this way forever. Tell me about your journey into, I always say paranormal, but how did you get sort of into this space of woke? We'll call it woke.
Being awake. Sure. It depends on how far back you want to go.
This
how
life,
long do you have?
We'll stay in this life.
Right, exactly. Well, I was kind of thinking about that, and it actually started when I was 3. I think I was about 3. I actually had an out-of-body experience when I was nonverbal. And of course, I didn't understand what it was. And I'll try to keep the story as brief as possible. But I didn't understand what it was until later. But basically, I went through a portal in the wall and was cruising around out in space. And that sounds totally nuts to some people. It sounded totally nuts to me even like 10 years ago. But now, everybody that's listening is woo. So,
right.
So we can say these things. So I didn't understand it, but I still remember it just as clear as if it happened yesterday. And so I think that probably was kind of what kicked off. Just I had an interest in everything paranormal throughout my whole life. And I think I asked my mom for an Edgar Cayce book when I was like 8 or something.
Wow.
And had a number of out-of-body experiences, nothing that profound, but again, while I was growing up. And then just always had a connection, and people would always come to me, even adults would come to me and like tell me their life's problems, even when I didn't want them to. And
you're like chucking little letter cubes at them.
Right.
When you see, this is so, to me, that blows my mind because I have almost no memories of my childhood. And I mean a lot of it. And I mean, like, I get flashes of high school and flashes of other stuff, but to have that kind of experience. So what made it more profound is how much you remember it, or did something happen there, or it just was so clear?
it was just so clear. I mean, it was just like as if a hole opened up in the wall right here where I'm sitting and I flew out into space right now. Like the memory is that clear as if, I mean, and that's how you know the difference between an OBO and like lucid dreaming or just a regular dream or whatever. It's like really, it's just as real as reality, quote unquote, feels now.
Wow. So out of body experience is different than, would you call this astral projection?
Yeah, I guess that's considered the same thing. I should know. I actually have a degree in consciousness studies now, so I should know these things, but I think they're the same, yeah.
What, who was I just talking about? I didn't know you could get a degree in consciousness studies.
I didn't either until just a few years ago. I actually went back and finished my degree after 20 years. I was a religious studies scholarship recipient at Arizona State University 20 years ago, and then dropped out, as so many people do. And a couple years ago, I was teaching yoga and stuff, and I found this program through Evergreen State College in Washington, where I live now. And it's consciousness studies, and I can't remember the name of the program, but the description of it on the website, it sounded like I wrote it. It was, I was like, wow. Oh my God, I don't know what this is, but I have to do it. And I was teaching like 9 classes a week at that time, and I dropped everything and just went back to school and just busted my butt for a year and a half and finished my degree in consciousness studies, right? Super weird.
Now, I have to also, already, again, I've interrupted you 20 times, but this is getting like almost crazy. I have about 3 or 4 different people that all of a sudden up and moved to Bellingham, Washington. And then I met someone that was on this podcast, Derek, that with my Shungite guy. He's right outside of Bellingham. And then another guy. Washington is becoming a weird like go-to for paranormal or metaphysical people. Like it's almost like there's a weird pilgrimage. And it's also the place, if you watch that movie Missing 411 about the people that just go missing in national parks, they just turn around and they're gone. Most of them, a ton of them are happening up in Washington State.
Interesting.
Yes, it must be so magical. What got you to Washington?
Well, what's really funny is I'm planning to leave Washington because it's raining right now, and it just rains incessantly. I'm not native to this area. I don't want to go off on a negative tangent, but it's beautiful. It's so beautiful up here, but it's so beautiful because and I'm on the coast of Washington. I'm in very rural Washington. Mm-hmm. I came up here because my partner is a carpenter, and he had a house that was half done and to remodel it. And now we're 2 houses in. I live in a 101-year-old rough craftsman home in the country that is beautiful, and I'm really going to miss it when we leave. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I need sunshine. I need a lot of sunshine.
Yeah, I'm such a sunshine person. It's definitely. Right. I can't.
And 101, it's got to be haunted, right?
No, actually, no. The house that we did before this house was super haunted, like haunted AF more than. And I've always picked up on that stuff, but we had some. Oh my gosh, we could do a whole podcast on that house.
All right. You're going to be on my Halloween episode next year because that's fabulous. And back to what is consciousness study? Do I need to take this? What does it do? What do you walk out of there with? I thought, well, first of all, they said on Thursdays we were going to be doing what's called a movement lab. So I was like, sweet, it'd probably be yoga or something. I'm a yoga teacher, right? It turns out it's conscious movement, which other people may know is sort of a version of ecstatic dance. I want to clarify that by saying I went to some ecstatic dances prior to getting into conscious movement. And some of them, like I lived in Sedona for a while, and no offense to Sedona. I mean, I love Sedona, but no offense to the people in Sedona, but some of them are like a little too woo-woo. Too woo-woo. They're too airy-fairy, love and light. Blessings to everyone. I love all people, but you know what I mean? You don't have to like Sedona. You will have to explain to me what ecstatic dance is later, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I went to some ecstatic dances before, and they were just kind of like woo-woo, way too hippie for me. But this is different. Conscious movement is sort of like somatically working through You can, work through everything. You're basically kind of like working through your emotions, like using your physical vessel as representation and a way to transcend and work through stuff, all kinds of stuff. So that's what we were doing on Thursdays. We did that for like 3 hours, and I connected so profoundly with the teacher. Her name is Cynthia Kennedy. And she's one of the, I think, secondary founders of what's called Open Floor International, which is a conscious movement practice. Trying to keep this brief, sorry, but I connected so profoundly with her that like the first day of class, I was like crying while she was talking, and I was like, what is happening right now? And I was kind of embarrassed, but we just connected, and I ended up becoming her assistant for a year and a half. I was under her wing and doing all of her classes with her. And so I have hundreds of hours now, probably, of conscious movement training.
So if let's say I come to you and don't feel like a rush, we got plenty of time, or we'll have you on another episode ASAP.
Okay.
The conscious movement. Is that like a therapy? Like I would come to you and say, I'm having anger issues, and I'd have to dance on my back or something. Like, you know what I mean? Because
you could do that. It's kind of different there's different. So do you know who Gabrielle Roth is? She created what's called 5 Rhythms, which was kind of the original, and I may not speak super clearly to this. I'm not as skilled as some of my teachers who've been doing this for 20 years, but Gabrielle Roth is a dance teacher basically back in the day that created something called 5 Rhythms, which is, a great example is like if you move through your day, you'll notice that it happens in rhythms almost. You kind of start out sort of slow, and then it kind of starts to whirl around, like the energy kind of whirls around. And then eventually at some point of the day, as things really ramp up and you're picking up the kids from soccer practice and their husbands over here and your job, and it's like this peak, and you're like, and it's kind of crazy and it's staccato almost,
Yes.
And then there's kind of a come down. You could also think of like an orgasm as kind of another way of thinking of it. Kind of slowly builds up, and there's a climax. So
yes, my mornings start out with like almost. I had to yell at Wix the other day, so it ruined my whole day. It ruined my rhythms or whatever. I had to yell at something there, but my morning is like I'm walking around in meditation, and then it switches, and same and then I exercise, and I can't have those two out of place. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so she came up with 5 of those.
So I think it's 5, and then since then there's another longer story behind what happened to 5 Rhythms. It's still around, but there's been these offshoots. And Open Floor International was some of the teachers that studied under Gabrielle Roth started Open Floor, and then there's other ones. Soul Motion. I've worked with some of the teachers through there, and it's basically just kind of different versions of like working through kind of the natural cycles that happen in your day, in your life, in the seasons. This is kind of one way of looking at it. The last teacher I was working with, Brita, who runs something called Wild Core, is kind of like working through your kind of core primitive self in a way. It's hard to explain. And some of hers is more choreographed. And then there's some kind of organic, free flowing movement. And then the conscious movement practices that I danced with a group in Olympia, or I did pre-COVID. Now I do it online, for a long time. And it's all organic, free form. So if someone walked in and saw this, they might think it was a room full of Looney Tune people.
Right. Wasn't that, I think I took that's a different, like a performance art is different, but, just a quick question, and then we'll get to some other stuff. Should we all be looking at Evergreen University? Is that a woo-woo university, or is it a regular university that had one good class, one good topic?
It's super liberal. I don't know. You can look at it. I don't even know where the consciousness studies program is at right now. Evergreen had some issues a couple years ago, but I also, you'll find this interesting, I also had 10 weeks of dream studies. So I was required for my class, this is so amazing, to write down my dreams. I had to dissect them. I learned all the different ways to interpret them. We worked in groups with our dreams. We all knew each other's dreams. We reenacted our dreams.
Wow.
We did a section. I had a Sabbath that I had to actually write. I had to construct a week long, I think it was, Sabbath, where I, what a Sabbath is, like like a Sunday Sabbath, you take a break, you rest. It was the Rest and Renewal was, I think, one of the books that we read. So there were so many interesting things about that program. It was really great. It really, I hate to say this, I learned a whole bunch of new things, but it really was it was a culmination of everything that I've studied through my life. And it was a way for me to also kind of, get a piece of paper that says hey, she knows what she's talking about.
Right. And
dumb that we still have to do that, but
yeah, I think I saw it come up when I was looking for classes for something. So, okay. So I'm going to make a note on that and look that up. Okay. So, so you have the consciousness study. We have the 3-year-old astral projection. Keep going. Where else was the wokeness woke?
I just kind of was into paranormal stuff all my life. And then, like so many people, I had a fair amount of trauma growing up, abuse and alcoholism. And I try not to make that be part of my story anymore. It used to be back in the day, I would tell the story and I would kind of focus on the negative part. I went through all this trauma and then here's the silver lining. Now I kind of talk a lot more about the silver lining and I kind of glaze over the trauma because I've processed a lot of it. But years of therapy and working through the trauma, I found yoga in 2000 was when I started doing yoga, and just kind of after a lifetime of just kind of being can I swear?
You can swear all you want. Please do.
Yay. Fucking A. After a lifetime of I don't want to say I was a fuck up, but I did a bunch of hallucinogens and stuff when I was younger and lived in a crazy house, just all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right.
So I kind of didn't really get my life together in a sense until a little bit later. But I also went through 15 years almost off and on of being an event marketing tour manager. So I traveled around the country nonstop. I lived on the road all the time for years.
There is something about that. And by the way, when we get to your ayahuasca story, I'm going to talk about mine and why I agree with you when you say you kind of said it's not part of your journey anymore. And there is something about two things about either as a comic, I used to do 30 weeks a year on the road. There is something about constant movement, and there is something else about becoming you. I like the word cosmopolitan, even if it was just in this country, there's something about that. I hope that when people live in small towns, they just get out on vacations everywhere, because there's something about the world and that movement that is so great.
I've always said that I learned so much more on the road than I ever learned from school or from anything else. I mean, just meeting so many different kinds of people from so many different every walk of life, every age, every background, and it just opens you up in a way that nothing else does. Invaluable experience. The job, I kind of hated the job because I was working for corporations, but the travel was amazing. In fact, that's the plan when we leave. When I leave first, Washington, we're about 3/4 of the way through renovating my camper van right now, and we're just going to hit the road.
Everyone is talking about the van life right now, but a camper is a little bigger, right?
My van is it was converted when I bought it. It was already converted, but it got full of mold last year. This is in Washington. Thank you. So we had to just completely gut it and start over, and it's gorgeous. And, my partner's a master carpenter, basically. Oh my God, I'm so lucky.
And just a quick question. This is weird. So many people this year. I like the tiny house thing. I looked into it. There are toilet problems, people. That's the only reason I'm not in one now. But I feel like so many people in this year have asked me or have talked about van doing that I almost think, because we're taping this in November, I think people are getting ready for what's coming and they don't realize.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I realize it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I'm actually was kind of panicky. I was telling my partner, we have to be out of here by Halloween or by the election, and which was putting a lot of pressure on him to renovate it. So I was like, okay, we can relax, I think. I hope. But
I think today is November 11th. Isn't it? 11. Oh, yeah.
12.
12.
12,
okay.
Yes.
I think we're a week away from things starting to change.
You think so?
It looks different than I thought it would, but anyways, well, it already happened because we're in the future right now. So we'll just stick with what we're talking about. Okay. So, and actually I'm going to take a break right now and come back with fascinating Shannon. Okay. Hold on. Hey, everybody, let me tell you about my friend Elaine Hathaway. She's not just an incredible tarot reader, I know, because I had a reading. She also does curse breaking, healing and prosperity magic, and the removal of dark entities. I had a client that was constantly being bothered by a dark entity. I sent her to Elaine, and man, she cleared that situation up right away. It was so impressive. She does so many things. Please check out her website at therisingmoon.com. There you can click on her YouTube channel and take a look at her, because you're going to feel like curse breaking and the removal of dark entities. This is a little old woman sitting in the corner of the room with a hood and a cape. No, she is the loveliest person. She does so many things other than tarot. Please check out her website at therisingmoon.com. You can also hear her October 23rd on this show at therisingmoon.com. All your paranormal and metaphysical needs will be met there. Okay, so I forgot where we were. So you're getting in a van and you're going away, that part. But there was another woke. We're going to get to your ayahuasca. So
many wokes.
Yeah, so many wokes. And and I'm going to jump right into this because it's called synesthesia. Tell us about your synesthesia.
I wouldn't say I have like a really like major case of it, but I'm a musician too, a singer. So I guess I've always been able to see music, like in my mind's eye, and particularly when I get high, I guess the first time it ever happened was also me. I was like, when you asked me about it, I was like, when was the first time that ever like really happened? It was another time I was super high when I was like 19, and
right.
And so
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're the guest. You go ahead.
It manifests itself in different ways, like different people. I actually saw this woman not too long ago who paints music. Like she'll listen to she had like Blue Note, Miles Davis, I think it is. She made a painting of the album or a painting of the song. So she shows you these beautiful paintings, and she's like, "This is Sade's Lover's Rock," or whatever. Wow. And that's definitely a version of synesthesia. It's kind of like the senses get confused.
Right.
Sort of.
The senses get confused. We think we want to say they're confused, but actually maybe they're more advanced.
Yeah. I mean, confused is not the right word. I think it's like they bleed over because everything bleeds over into everything. Everything's everything. I don't know.
And you know what? I'm not a fan of. I have to say, I think a lot of experiences through drugs are how people become woke.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, I'm not, almost everyone I know smokes, and I literally do not smoke except for when I go out kayaking. That's the only time I smoke a tiny, tiny amount. So this edible thing that happened was super unusual. And that's probably why I got so high, was because I don't normally do that kind of stuff. Not that I need to clarify it, but I'm I don't want people to think I'm a pothead.
No. And you know what? Actually, let's go right to it in that podcast, and then we'll jump around again. Because, I don't do, I haven't done edibles. I really don't. I don't like pot. It just wasn't my thing ever. Mm-hmm. And, but I think it's so, and I'm going to set this up for you, because not only are edibles, people be careful with edibles.
Yeah.
And hello, Brittany. I'm not going to say which Brittany, but the lovely Brittany came to my show in Arkansas, and she looked at me and she's like, "This was great, but we took edibles earlier, and this was great." And I was like, "Are you okay driving home?"
Oh my God.
Yes, it was wonderful. But all right, so, and this episode, I forget the name of it. I will look as we're speaking. This episode not only blew my mind, I listened to it 3 times, and I sent it to my friend who listened to it a couple times. So set up what happened on this episode, and I'll get the name of it.
Yeah, so my partner and I were out kayaking and found a little piece of chocolate. Somebody gave us an edible a long time ago. It was like one piece of chocolate, and we split the one piece. It wasn't even like a bar. It was such a small amount. It was amazing. So nothing happened as far as I know. we were kayaking in a really beautiful place, and I was kind of like, wow, it's really beautiful here. Is it really beautiful, or am I really high? I don't know. But then I just forgot about it. We came home, and it was 6 or 7 hours later, and we're watching TV, and we're watching the final episode of a series, and I got like really super into it. And I realized my heart was racing. I was like in a total state of hyperarousal. I was like sweating, and I was like, wow, I'm really into this show. What is going on? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm high as a fucking kite. Like, it just like hit me like a truck. And I don't really like pot very much either, because I get super paranoid now. Back in the, 25 years ago, I used to smoke a ton, but I quit all that because I get paranoid. So I instantly started to get a little bit paranoid, and I told my partner, I was like, don't laugh at me right now. I'm really high. I need to go downstairs and like lock myself in the bathroom. I knew I just needed to be alone. And I got in the bathroom, couldn't figure stuff out. And I got super paranoid, and I was locking the doors and making sure the windows were locked and closing all the windows. Once I finally got like settled, I got into the tub. We have this beautiful, gorgeous bathroom that he made with a clawfoot tub. And, and I knew that I listen to binaural frequencies a lot when I'm like meditating and going to sleep. And I knew I needed to find a really good binaural. And being as high as I was like, I have to find it's got to be a pure binaural. And I suddenly realized.
Right. And for people that don't know, that's where there's one particular vibration in one ear and another in the other ear, correct?
Yeah, okay. Pretty much. And your brain kind of makes up the difference. It's the easy way to explain it. But hemisync is another way to say it. But anyway, I knew I had to find a pure binaural. And I started to realize that I could hear all of the teeny tiny tones within the tones. And I started to see them in my mind's eye as I can sober too, but it's like really amplified, obviously, when I'm high. I could see them almost like as color bands, and I could see if there was a tiny band that was like discordant, or that like wasn't of a pure frequency. And it's so hard to explain, but
well,
that part I remember.
That's very interesting, because I've been sort of working on my clairaudient, and I don't know if this is the same thing, but like I will get in my car and turn on a song. I thought I was losing my hearing, but maybe something else is going on here. I will suddenly, where I never heard it before, hear a sound, and it'll be like one instrument isolated in that and I go, oh, I didn't know that cymbal was in there, and all I can hear is the cymbal. Was it kind of like that?
Kind of, yeah. And that's actually kind of what's happened to me before when I've done the marijuana and had music is like, yeah, certain instruments will just kind of like jump out. So, yeah, maybe it was kind of a version of that. But in this particular case, I could really see it, too.
I think it's a clairaudient, and that's why they talk about that witches. I think sometimes, I remember always hearing when I was a kid that real witches could hear unbelievably well, like across the room. But I think they're hearing clairaudient.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is interesting too. To just kind of segue a little bit sideways, I did a podcast on my podcast last night with a friend of mine named Ami Ward, and we talked about. Oh my gosh, where was I going with this?
Clairaudient.
Yeah, we talked about clairaudient. Oh, she was saying that like kind of what we're all ascending and evolving right now, right? We're like tuning into 5, 6, 7D. And she was saying that like a lot of what we're experiencing, she's a really talented energy worker, by the way, is this like static. Like as we're tuning into the higher dimension.
Oops. Oh, hold on, folks. I'm calling Shannon back. I don't know what happened.
Please leave your message for...
Okay, Shannon's back. We don't know what happened. I actually turned the sound down for a second, but I don't know why that would hang up on you. And actually, it hung up on you and called you back.
Yeah, that was really weird. I was like, oh, someone else is calling.
I am having so much technology trouble. It's unbelievable. Okay.
Me.
Right? It's got to be in the air. I've had everything go wrong. My website, I couldn't get the CD up. I have had everything go wrong. And maybe that is the energy. Just a side note, I know we're probably out of this energy at this time, but Courage is shaking a lot. And I called Sonia and she just said, oh, he says he's not sick. Just the energy is so intense right now. He kind of shakes.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God. Yeah. That's a whole nother topic, is how intense the energy is right now coming through the collective. Holy cow. Like,
yes.
whew, the anxieties. Yeah.
I know. And so, okay,
Yeah.
so you, your friend was on and she was saying how, and then it hung up.
Okay, so yeah, I was interviewing my friend on my podcast last night, Ami Ward, who's a really talented energy worker, and she was saying that like we're all transcendent, or we're tuning into 5, 6, 7D right now, right? And as we're like tuning in, but we're not quite tuned in to like higher dimensional fields. It's almost like we're on a radio station that's like halfway in, halfway out. It's like fuzzy, and so we're hearing in our, I want to say mind's eye, but like in our mind's ear, if you will, this noise, like white noise almost. And her technique, which I thought was really great, is to call upon her. She calls them spirits. I call them helpers. Jessica calls them aliens, whatever. To just ask them to turn it down, basically.
Oh, is that?
Can you
I
just
bet
like
some of that's ringing. A lot of people having ringing in their ears.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I have horrible ringing. Always have. Yeah. But that's probably from going to too many clubs when I was younger.
That's what I always think. I thought I've had my Walkmans on too long, but now I'm starting to think, and this sounds terrible, but there's a weird, okay, so we're in the beginning of November, and these are two strange things that are happening. First of all, I am not a shopper, and all of a sudden I'm a shopper, and I feel like someone is like whispering in my ear, buy whatever you want and don't worry, because this isn't going to last long. Like, go ahead and spend it all now.
Similar.
Yeah, that's number one thing. And number two is the senses that I think I wondered if I was ruining my ears. And now I'm thinking ears aren't going to matter soon. Inner hearing is, but I don't want to be old and find out I was wrong and I can't hear anymore. But there's always that safety net. But maybe that's what's happening. Wow. So she said to just turn it down. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I have to interject and say also that's one of the big things that's been happening to me for quite a few years now is I call it my TV turns on. It's kind of how I know it happens like if I'm in a haunted house, sometimes it'll happen, or if I'm just in an area that's like really energetically, like it happens a lot when I'm in Sedona or Shasta or areas that are like super high frequency kind of places, or if I'm with people or some energetic thing changes. Mm-hmm. Like if you were in a room and someone turned on an old TV set, even if they had the sound turned all the way down, you would kind of hear that high pitched frequency. Mm-hmm. It's like that. It sounds like a TV turns on in my head. And sometimes it's so loud, I'm like, oh, God. It's like, oh, Jesus. Like the TV just turned on in my head. Something must be alive in this space.
Wow. I can't tell. It's very funny that I have I felt like the years I did on the road shut off my empath abilities, and I'm totally okay with that. But there's
oh my God.
There's one weird thing with me, which is like, I totally understand everything you're telling me, and I can literally feel it when you tell me, but it's not happening to me. And I sort of feel like I'm built of some sort of sturdy stock that just doesn't put up with this, right? It's like, my guides are like, no, we're not doing that. And it's passed away. But I'm in such admiration, like when you guys are so sensitive, because I know my guides are like, no. People are always like, no. I walk into a place and they're like, you must feel everything that's going on. And I'm like, nope, in my little world.
No, when I was on the road, when I lived on the road, I was completely desensitized to, I don't know about completely, but I was way more, you have to be.
Yeah.
There's like so many people. I mean, I was running mass events with hundreds of thousands of people. So there's no way.
Right.
I was just so shut down. But actually that, if you want to segue back to kind of my woke story, that's another big piece of my woke story was 2005. I was on the road. I was managing a tour for Levi's, actually. I was 5.5 months into a 6-month tour. And one day, we were driving this giant RV around the country. And one day I just like lost it. And by normal accounts, people would call it like a nervous breakdown. Other people said, oh, you opened your heart chakra or whatever, whatever it was. But something happened. I had like a massive opening, and like I couldn't stop crying for, I mean, hours and hours and hours on end. I was just like sobbing hysterically, and I literally had to call and I was managing the tour. I had like a whole staff that was outside waiting for me to like go out and tell them what to do. And I had to call the boss, and I was like, you got to get me on a plane and get me out of here. And they're like, right now? And I'm like, yeah, right now. And they're like, you have 2 weeks left of the tour. And I'm like, so I left. That was it. And I got off the road and really kind of started to dive more into paranormal, you know, that sort of stuff. And I had been doing yoga and stuff at that point, and I really had just been, you know, throughout the years, you're like working on processing your trauma, whether you realize you are or not. And eventually it did become more of a conscious thing, you know, working through my trauma. So there's a lot of that, just like years of that. And I ended up kind of going back on and off the road for years because I would run out of money and would have to take a tour. And
right.
So and then
okay, go ahead. I was going to say, I was going to pull you back into the bathtub.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. So yeah, let's go back to the story. I told you I'm a storyteller.
That's all right. I'll pull you in.
Okay. So no, yep, just rein me in. So I'm in the bathtub and I get over the paranoia and I finally find the most pure. It was like 528 hertz binaural frequency, and it took me a long time to find the perfect one that felt pure. And I wish I could find it now, of course. And I just left it playing. It was like just looping. And I was smart enough to put a little notebook next to the tub, and I picked it up and I started writing, and I could not stop. I literally, I couldn't even get out of the bathtub. I was like working the handles with my feet to make sure I was not in cold water because I couldn't even sit up long enough to stop writing. I couldn't stop writing long enough to sit up. And eventually I did get out of the tub and went to bed and was writing in bed and fell asleep with the pen in my hand, woke up the next morning, was writing more. And I still felt it a lot in the morning. I was still like tuned into that frequency, but eventually it kind of faded. And I'm not there I'm not always in 60 or whatever.
Right.
I fall asleep and wake up.
Yes. And I want everyone to listen to the episode because you go through a huge list. You tuned in to the frequency of the planet or everything on it, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I was able to feel, I guess. I'm, like I said, more clairsentient. So I was able to just sense, the frequency, the density of everything. And I realized, I mean, I've had this theory for a while, and I also have a theory about COVID. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I kind of controversial.
I would love to. Well, if you're okay with it, I would love to hear it because I don't think a theory is telling someone that because they're mate died of it, it's their fault or anything like that. But we'll come on to that, right? Well,
Okay,
yeah.
Well, it all involves like reconnecting to Earth, to the planet, to Earth, to nature. And I picked up on the density, the frequency of everything. And I'm a big like earther, which I find really funny that they have a name for that. Like it's getting barefoot on the earth. There's like a name for that, grounding everything. And I could sense that, like, basically, the closer that things are to their natural state, like plants vibrate at a high, and I wouldn't even say high, faster maybe frequency, because they're natural. So basically, the things that are more natural vibrate at a higher frequency. And so, like, for example, heavily processed food, it's not that it's at a low vibration per se, but more just that it doesn't really have much vibration left. It's like the more that something gets pulled away, separate, or the farther it is away from its natural earthbound state, if that makes sense.
Yes. So you grow a tomato in your backyard. It's not only a different vibration, and people know this that do, it tastes better than the one you buy in the store that was grown with Roundup in its seeds and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But the list that you go through, because you read everything you got that night, and it's fascinating. I mean, I know you kind of wrapped it up in one thing, but it's fascinating all the stuff you went through. And it was just, there was a moment I was going to take notes, and then it was like, you'll never get all of it. Just listen to it again and enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. It was fascinating to me too. The next morning I read it back to my partner after I kind of came to a little bit more. And I had a hard time reading it because I was like, who wrote this shit? Like I remembered writing it and I was still kind of in that space. It's not like some people I think channel, like, it's almost like they're not there. Like they're pulling this other spirit out. For me, it's like, I'm there, but I'm just able to tune into some bigger, all of it. I'm able to tune into everything, I guess. And it doesn't, I hate even saying I, because it feels like it's like a we thing.
Sure. It's probably God.
But yeah, I read it back to him and I was like, holy shit, this is like powerful. Like, what? I got to share this with people. I don't even know what just came through me.
Yeah.
So,
and that episode is your September 15th episode, and it's called Everything's on a Spectrum of Colored Feeling Tones, a Massive Edible Download.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a long name. Yeah.
It is good, but that is, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about ayahuasca, and we're going to talk about the car accident and all kinds of things. And my God, I feel like I just got on the phone with you.
I know.
And we're already 40 minutes in. Okay, folks, we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Paranormal Karen here, doing an ad for myself because I can't remember when I tape my podcast to say these things. First of all, if you need a holiday gift, you can get a gift certificate for a 30 or 60-minute tarot reading on my website, karenrontowski.com. Also, I'm very, very happy my new CD called Psychic Stand-Up Valentine's Edition is now available everywhere. You can get it on Amazon Music. You can get it on Apple iTunes. You can get it on Spotify, and it's even got a free YouTube channel where you can listen to it there. But it's the show I want to do on the road. It's 45 minutes of me improvising and reading tarot in front of a live audience. It is fun. It is funny. It is real tarot, real funny. All right, everybody, back to the show. Okay, folks. So definitely check out that episode and listen. You'll probably listen to it 2 or 3 times. It's going to break the internet. Okay. Would you be okay saying your theory of COVID, and then I'll throw in what I think? And I know we all have theories, but you hit it and I'll double it.
Okay, I'm going to hit it, but I don't want people to hate me because, man, it's really been, it's been controversial even bringing it up. People, it's such a sensitive thing. And I think it's because it's tapping into people's deepest fear, the fear of death. Yeah. And it's just like provoking them to lash out and project their uncomfortable feelings within at other people.
Well,
so I'm like,
once it became politicized, it was different. So I almost don't even know if it's the COVID that is controversial. I think it's the politics of this. Now you're on this. Are you on this side or on that side? So
right.
We're just going to wipe that away and go with what your intuition says about COVID, and then I'll.
Yeah, and I just have to say, like, I think Jessa has talked about this too on the Soberish podcast, is the idea of like this or that. Like everybody wants to it's driving me crazy, actually. I'm on Facebook way too much, but the like, are you over here? Are you over here? And if you question one tiny thing, it's like, well, you're over there with those people. Then like, no, I'm not like a crazy conspiracy theorist or whatever necessarily. I just am questioning some things, and it's not this or nothing is this or that. It's both and. It's both and.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, that there's my little clarification or whatever. I think that a virus is something that I'm gonna sound like a dork, probably like an idiot when I say this. I'm not a scientist. Let me just clarify that.
Okay.
At all. But a virus, my understanding of a virus is that it comes through to like clear something out. Right? It's like latches on to like get rid of stuff. I'm probably saying this so wrong. People probably already hate me, I'm sure.
Well, no, I actually know where you're going, and I have a different way to say probably the same thing, I think.
Okay. Or maybe you can say it better so people won't hate me. So I think that I know that we have gotten really super disconnected from the planet, from Earth, from nature, right? Literally there are people who don't even like touch nature, who don't even touch, like you wake up in your house, you put your shoes on, you go outside. This is one of the reasons why I have to move away from Washington, because I literally can't sit down on the ground because it's always wet and it makes me nuts. But they don't, they go to their car, they get in the car, they go to their job. They never like actually touch earth.
Right.
Which is bizarre to me. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things that I found that has really helped me through COVID was there was days where all I could do was just go out in the backyard when it was sunny and just lay down and like get as much of my skin on the earth as possible. And you could feel your blood pressure drop. There's lots of science behind that is a real thing.
As a matter of fact, before I called you, I was on YouTube and I saw an ad for a movie called The Earthing Movie.
Oh, I love it.
Oh,
yeah.
did you? I don't know if you saw it, but that's what I'm going to watch tonight, and I'll probably do talk about it. But what's even funnier is here in LA, like especially between readings, if I take my dog out, I hold onto a tree. I talk to the trees. I hold onto a tree.
Yay.
But we literally have fake grass. We have fake grass in LA because of the drought.
I used to live there. Yeah.
So you lay down. So it's the earthing. Okay.
The earthing.
Yeah. So,
Can I tell you? I have a segue again where I where I really started to connect with trees was when I lived in LA. I was a dog walker part time, and I would just like stop and hug the trees along the way.
Yes,
I'm walking dogs.
When I when they trim the trees here, I do a meditation and I go down underneath and I hold their roots like I'm holding their hands. But LA trees love LA. Until the 5G comes, they love LA, and that is what we have. Because other than that, sometimes people have yards. Sometimes it's patches of land. If you have a yard, God bless you. That's why I want my mobile home. Okay, so are you thinking that COVID we're not connected to the earth?
Basically, I think that we're eating okay. I'm also going to make one more clarification, which is I live in rural America. I live in the middle of nowhere. I only know a few people personally that have had it. I don't know anyone that's died, like personally. I know like people's dads that died or whatever, but so it's not hitting us the way that it is hitting people in cities. So I really need to clarify with that. I realize that my experience is very different because of that. However, I have heard people say, well, so-and-so got it and she was really healthy. And I'm like, well, define healthy, because healthy you can eat a lot of preservative-laden food and be pretty disconnected from the earth and still be considered healthy, quote unquote, Right. To me, healthy is eating real food that comes out of the ground without a bunch of preservatives on. I'm going to sound super judgmental. I'm just going to say it. Just connecting, living the way that we would have lived 100 or 200 years ago, like really connected to the earth's harmony. And I think that Mother Earth, it's perfect. It's imperfectly perfect. And there's a harmony to everything in the universe that we were given these. I'm going to sound like such a hippie right now, but like we were given.
I'm with you.
Yeah. We were given these incredible gifts of like, she's so abundant and we have access to food and air and clean water and all these wonderful things. And we have like destroyed it and we're so disconnected from it. And our religion, in dogma, traditional religion is so disconnected from spirituality and earth.
Yeah. And
I think that the virus maybe comes through and latches on to anything that is not natural-ish. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I think. And I could be totally wrong.
Well, what, too, and I don't think anyone will take offense to this, even the people that are agreeing with you, because here's the thing. I do live in LA. This is kind of crazy. I always try to shop at Trader Joe's because I've researched what they do and they are so insane about where their food comes from and stuff like that. Well, since COVID, I'm shopping at a different place and I feel like my skin is different, even though I don't know that the big chains really have organic stuff. So I don't think anyone should be offended by this, because you know what? If you live in a city, this is unbelievably hard to do. All the things you're talking about, and by the way, if you're hearing weird noises behind me, it is the law that in LA, you must live above a musician. no matter where you are.
Or live with one.
Yes.
When I lived there, I lived with one.
Right. So you could live in a cellar and they will dig a hole underneath and put a musician in it. So there's music coming from beneath me.
Oh, God.
But that, I agree with that. I also agree with this ascension. There's a change that is supposed to be taking place in our DNA, which is what a virus does. And this is not, this isn't even a mask or no mask argument that we're talking about.
Not at all.
And also, nobody's hydrated. People are not drinking enough
oh my
water.
gosh. For sure.
And somebody else said,
good water too.
And
Clean,
good
water, structured water, yeah.
This is how weird and how intense we are about what you're saying. Like my sister lives in a small town. They get great water out of a well or whatever. I don't know. It's not out of a well, but whatever. So I have a Berkey, which is one of those, it's a doomsday prepper water system that takes everything out of the water. Everything. So I then have to buy minerals to put back in the water. So, but I would actually tell everyone, get your Berkey, because it also has special fluoride filters. Because fluoride is something that fluoride literally crustifies. I made up that word.
Your third eye,
your
right?
pineal gland in your third eye. And
isn't it crazy that people still use fluoride? The people, I'm like, oh my God, you're still using fluoride toothpaste. And I know like other people are like, oh, that's conspiracy theory, bunch of stupid stuff, whatever.
Right.
Like, no, it
people in
calcifies
England,
your pineal gland.
Yeah. Did you ever see the people in England, their teeth? Yes, I have. They're fine. They don't like the orthodontist, but their teeth are not falling out of their head. And I love crooked teeth. So
I do too.
I know. It's so characterish. In fact, my dentist, because I'm now grinding my teeth because I have a crossbite. We didn't have crossbites when I was a kid. And he wants to get me to get braces. And I'm like, not unless they can write them off. And dude, I got a tooth that is crooked now. It's trying to escape the other teeth. And I think it's adorable. So I said to him, I go, can you get me braces and leave that tooth there? And he was like, I think so.
He's like, you want what?
I know. I go, I like crooked teeth. I haven't even got a night guard yet. I got to get a night guard. And somebody else said vitamin D. But I do think in that sort of what you're saying, again, what is healthy? It is.
And sunshine is really important too.
Vitamin
sunshine,
D,
clean
sunshine.
air, vitamin D. Moving your body. Like,
yes.
If you think about how people were 100 or 200 years ago, they got up every day and they were like chopping wood and going out hunting and, getting all like moving. We're supposed to be moving our bodies all day long. Really.
Right.
We're not supposed to be living these sedentary lifestyles hunkered over in chairs.
Exercise shouldn't be on your to-do list. It should just happen.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I think that a big part of that, I'm a yoga teacher and conscious movement teacher. I think a big part of that is people think that you have to you got to put on some spandex and designate 1 hour. And you got to find a class and you got to go to a gym and all. You don't have to do it. Just move your body. Just go outside and walk around and jump and skip. And, that's another thing that I do, by the way, is I have a YouTube channel and I've got a character named Lila Hum that does dance running down the beach and funny movement stuff. Just moving your body. You don't have to wear special clothes or go to a special, just move your damn body.
And I agree with you, but I have to say the thing I miss the most, this is the thing that COVID, other than comedy, the thing that COVID took from me is every day I would get up, I would do my stuff, I would jump on my bike, I would ride to hot yoga and I would ride home. And that's the youth. I think that's the fountain of youth. And I loved
my sister would agree with you.
The parts of my body that are old now, because I can't go to yoga, and everybody's like, do it online. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. That hot room, standing next to cute Tony, it's different. And then my bike. And
I tried hot yoga. My sister is all over it. No offense to people who do, I teach classes. So obviously classes are okay to go to, but I'm like, I can do it and I get it. Your muscles are long, you feel good, like all that. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like I also lived in Phoenix off and on for a long time. So I'm kind of like,
right.
I don't really want to be that hot anymore.
Yeah, I didn't like,
I get it.
I visited Jessa in Phoenix and I thought I was going to die, but they do it with humidity and it's a weird thing because there's no in between. You hate it or you love it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no one's like, oh, I feel it's kind of okay. Like,
Yeah, it's I'm all in or I'm not there. But I
Totally.
cannot wait to get back to that. I have a rowing machine, which is great because this is literally in fact I have an appointment tomorrow with Amy Spicer, and I hope she's going to fix this because I can't stop moving. Literally,
Yay.
I have to set a timer to sit down and write, and then I go work out, and then I go for a walk, and then I come back, and then it's constant. But anyways, but this podcast is not about me. Okay, so let's get. I think so. Anyways, the podcast I want everyone to hear. Go listen to it. You get it. You got an idea what it's about. So tell me about your ayahuasca trip, and then I'll tell you something about that. So hit me. Tell me about your ayahuasca awakening.
Well, I'll try to keep it really brief. It was actually, you're going to laugh at this, my consciousness studies program at Evergreen. I actually wrote. That's one of the beautiful things about Evergreen, and especially, I'm an quite older student, so and my teacher loved me. I was sort of apprenticing under her, so she kind of let me do stuff. But you can write what's called an ILC, which is like you write your own class, basically, and you decide what books you're going to read and what you're going to do and the activities that you're going to do. And a lot of it, they really value like learning from the community. So if you're going to like study with other people, you can write that in. So I wrote this big class, and of course I didn't say, and God, I hope no one from Evergreen is like listening to this right now, but I didn't say ayahuasca. I said, in my teacher's defense, she did not know this, by the way. So
Okay.
get her in trouble. I didn't say
Evergreen
ayahuasca.
is
I
our
think
sponsor. No, I'm just kidding.
I said like herbal. I was going to study herbal something. I don't remember what it was, but basically I kind of wrote my ayahuasca journey into my class. Like I kind of like got credit for doing ayahuasca in a way. I mean, it was a whole bunch of other things too, but that was part of it. I was like a week. I think I said a weekend long herbal workshop. That's what I call it. So anyway, how do I make it brief? There was a male shaman. He seemed like a nice enough guy. I connected with him. I got connected with it through a friend of mine, so I trusted her. But from the get-go, the first conversation with him was good, but I just kind of had it like, I don't know. I think as women, I think we all have ingrained kind of some issues. Like we've been living in a patriarchal culture, right? So it's
right. So we're always
kind of hard to not have some man stuff here and there, right?
Right.
So I picked up a little bit of that in the field. Does that make sense? Like just a little bit of like abrasive ego man stuff.
Yes.
But I was like, okay, he's cool. I trust him. He seems like he kind of had a patriarchalness about him.
And that's such a female thing to go, but he's a professional. Like today I was listening on the radio. Sting was playing that song, Don't Stand So Close to Me, where it's the teacher that likes the student. And I was like, that song, I didn't understand it when it first came out, but it's literally like you see a male teacher and you're like, well, he's a professional. And then you're like, no, he's lusting after his student.
Yeah.
So now that I've put that in there, go ahead.
No, and that's such a great way to describe kind of so throughout my life, I kind of, I was abused by several men, to be honest. So I kind of had that, like just that kind of, I think a lot of women do. We still have that. Even if we've done all of our work, I feel like we still kind of have that lingering around. And I've had bosses that I had that kind of relationship with. And
that's not, that's not a terrible thing if you're not acting on it, but to be aware and alert and just go, hey, what's going on here is okay.
Yeah. What is this?
Especially if you're going to take a drug where you're out of your body.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, against my own better judgment, against my own intuition, and I pretty much live my life by my intuition now, but every once in a while I don't listen to it whatever. So I did it anyway. I went to this beautiful house out in Portland, and I had always wanted to do it in South America, whatever. I did it. And the first night was awful. I'll just straight up say it was awful. And it was dark. It was dark.
So you had a bad trip.
Basically, but I wouldn't say it's a bad trip because, I know Aya is like, sometimes that's what you need.
Right.
I actually don't, I'm not even going to go like too much into it, but basically the long story short is he said, well, what he was like, I experience, you have some darkness in your field or whatever. And I was like, cool, I'm sure I do. We all do. And I've processed a ton of shit. It's not like I've been ignoring it,
right.
Processed lots of my shadow. but he kind of like threw it back on me. So was this the first night or the second night? I'm getting confused now, but there was a thing. If anyone who's done I kind of will understand this. There was an energy that was outside of me that was trying to get into me. And I would not probably ever have said something like that prior to doing that. And in fact, before we started the journey, he was talking about, he was kind of telling us what was going to happen and what we should expect. And he was talking about like if you encounter a dark entity or if you see like a monster or, these negative things. And I was like, I've had other, and it's always males, strangely enough. I was like, I just don't really play in those fields. So it doesn't really exist for me. Like, I sort of feel like if you ignore the monsters in the closet, they're not really, like if they don't think they're scaring you, they won't try to scare you. You know what I mean?
Also,
it's like
what an awful image to put in someone's head beforehand.
Right. Exactly. And I was like, I don't really need to entertain that. That's not something that I normally would even, and I've had some really profound drug experiences and really profound, and that's just not a place I need to go to. To be honest, I was abused by my grandfather. I was molested until I was like 12. So I have a ton of darkness in my past that I've already dealt with. Like I've processed a shit ton of that. So it's not like, because I know other people will probably listen to this and I could like almost feel them going like, well, she's just ignoring it. Like, no, I'm not ignoring it. I just like have seen enough of it that I don't need to see it all the time to be reminded what's good. Does that make sense?
Right. And you do process it. That's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not afraid of it. I guess that's the best way to put it. I'm not afraid of it. So it just doesn't.
Yeah. You unattached from it.
Yeah.
Which is what you
brought it
to. Yeah.
Yeah, so he brought it up, and I was kind of like, let's not dwell here because it's just not something I wanted, whatever. So then, sure enough, he brings it into the field, so there it shows up. And then the weird part was the first night it was bad. I had a talk with him, and I said, I don't feel comfortable with this, and I don't think I want to continue. And he, of course, convinced me to stay by using this kind of patriarchal energy, and it was another case of that, of like me listening to this guy telling me that he knew more about me than I knew about me. And everything in my intuition was saying, this is not the right thing.
Right.
And two of my female mentors, including my main teacher, when I told them I was going to do Aya, they're like, oh, that's not for me. And I was like, she's like, I have all the respect in the world for it, but it's not for me. And something like clicked when my main teacher said that. And I was like, maybe it's not for me either, but I did it anyway. So anyway, night 2 comes, he convinces me to stay. It was like, I just kept going against my intuition. And then night 2 was even worse. That's when I think the thing was like trying to get in me. And he kept saying, sometimes Aya can be like dark. She can be sort of dark. So don't be afraid, like open up and let it in. So I'm like, So I'm like there, and I can sense that this thing is outside of me. And there was other stuff that happened. There was like another guy that was there. How much do I want to go into this? There's another guy there that had really weird, crappy energy. I don't know how better to say it. And he was a nice guy, but he had a lot of junk on him. I could just sense it. And he was the helper guy. And there was a point where he like came over to my mat to bring me some earplugs. And then he just like hung out there for a while, like on my mat, like looking down at the ground. And I'm like, hi. But I was like on Aya. So I just like went back up to the top of my mat, and I was kind of like, okay, I'll just wait for him to leave. But I think that he had just gotten done cleaning up vomit from another girl. This is like, how deep do I want to go into this trip? Who told me later that she was throwing up a curse from her South American family or something. And then he like came over to my mat, and I think he like that was her theory. She was like, everything that you're feeling afterward, she was like, everything that you're feeling about this whole trip is not untrue. Like there was some bad energy in that room, and the shaman was not, the shaman's job is to take the bad shit that comes up and like kick it out, basically.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be halfway in. They're supposed to be halfway in so they can go in. This person sounds bad.
And so his girlfriend was there. The shaman's girlfriend was there too, like new girlfriend. They were like newly in love. And there was a point I remember in the journey where I looked up and there was an absence. There was a void where the shaman should have been. And I found out later that he was like dealing with her. So he like left, he like abandoned us energetically during the trip. And then so later, like I kind of confronted him with, I didn't say it like that, but he was sort of confronted with it. And of course he denied it, and he like kind of threw it back at me, and he was like, oh, it's your own energy that you're dealing with. And I was like, I'm telling you, that thing that was trying to get in me that is not my shit. Like, I know when something is mine and when it's not mine, and that was not mine. But I let it in because I kept hearing what he had said, like, be open to it. And so I ended up just like falling asleep. And the next morning I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm all freaked out. Like, I let this bad energy into me or whatever. And I'm all freaked out. And my friend, thank God bless her heart, who is there, who knows me, she's the one that said, I think I had told you, she was like, dude, you're so light. Like, even if something dark got in you, it wouldn't stick for very long. And she's like,
right.
Just go out to the woods, call on your female ancestral lineage, and, you know, get barefoot and just ask them to remove anything. And she's like, and I'll smudge you when we leave her. So we like, we left. And let me clarify by saying there was a couple other people there, including the girl who threw up the curse, blah, 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 who totally agreed with this whole experience of mine. They were like, this is bad. He left us. He's not a good shaman. You know, so it wasn't just my experience alone. And the one girl was like, there was two people were like, there was some really bad energy in that room. You could like literally like see like shit spirits like flying around. It was just an unmanaged room. So we end up at a coffee shop afterward, and she's like saging me outside of like a Starbucks or something. Families are walking by. They're like, what are you doing? But then I went out to the woods. I called on my female ancestor. I did the whole thing. I did like a sort of a ceremony and totally got rid of it. And I know I did. I felt it. And there was really nothing in there. And but what I realized is like, I'm the healer. I am my own healer. I didn't listen to that was the lesson of the whole thing was listen to your own intuition. I don't need another man after a lifetime of men telling me that they know me, they've got the answers. I don't need that. Like, I have the answers for me. I am my own fucking healer. Yes. And it was so profound. And so I guess I really did get what I needed to get from Aya. It just wasn't the way that I thought I was going to get it.
That's what I think happened. And actually, I remember reading for someone that said, she said to me, I went to do an ayahuasca and they said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to learn how to stand up for myself. And I think she said like on the third night, she was done with it. I don't want to do it. And the guy said, no. And he pushed her to do it and she ran away. And she was like, so I had a bad experience. And I was like, no, you had the right
exactly
experience.
What you needed.
Yeah. It just didn't look like it. But, man, you know, that's the one thing. And I joke about this and I know there's some good ones. In fact, I'm getting ready to interview a shaman and, because I want to know more about because I joke about what's a Hollywood shaman. We have a lot of shamans around here. You know, shamans used to be people that got very sick and had to heal themselves. And there's a whole thing about it. And I have met the real deal. I mean, and there's a lot of them around here. And I can't say that you don't go to school and become a shaman and then you get it. Because I took a couple of shaman classes. But I think this is the hard thing, when something like ayahuasca becomes popular, it becomes watered down and the wrong people get involved.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. Well, and also I do want to clarify by saying I did the Shipibo tradition, which I should have, again, listened to my intuition. I'm a musician. All my friends who had done Aya were like, oh my God, you're going to love the music. It's the most amazing part. So when the guy said to me in the preliminary phone call that there wasn't going to be any music except for him singing, I was like, what? Like, that doesn't sound right to me. It's literally, I'm not joking, Karen, it's like 5 hours of silence in a dark room where you're not, and I was not really, we were allowed to go outside, but not really far off the porch. I wanted to be like outside, but so we were indoors in the dark, in the silence for 5 hours, listening to other people throw up.
Wow. You know what else I have to say? There shouldn't have been that much throwing up. Throwing up is more rare than people know. So I
didn't throw up.
He was making people sick.
Making
people sick.
Yeah, who knows? But I mean, I was like, I couldn't even sit for 5 hours sober and listen to people throw up in a silent room without like kind of having a bad trip, you know? Like,
right. You know,
can we turn a little binaural on or something, please? Like,
you know what's interesting? And then I'm about to run out of battery, but you are fantastic. I still have in my I have an old iPhone 5 or something. I use it as an iPod because I drop it so much I don't want to use my phone. And it has the music that I have. The Vanda, actually, people, you can hear her on my first year she was on. She was the lady that helped me with this. I better not say too much before anyone gets arrested. But you start talking and you go, oh, this is going out on the air. She downloaded some music, and I have to tell you, when it comes on, when I have it on shuffle, it freaks me out. And it must be a different music because this is this weird, like clicking through the woods and whistling. And whistling, I know, and whistling, and it doesn't go, the whistling, it's like it'll go, like there's a gourd or something there, and the whistling does not go with the rhythm. And every time it comes on, I'm like, you got to get it off, And and it's also weird because, and this is a whole other podcast, but I will whistle for my dog. I'll whistle for him to come over. But I am so in tune about the stories about don't whistle in Hawaii and how whistling can call things from the other side.
Really? I've never heard that.
Don't whistle in Hawaii. You're calling in spirits. And and I actually interviewed my friend Kermit, who grew up in Hawaii, and he was like, I can't even whistle now in Washington because it was such there's something about it. So I always think the whistling on that was about when you're doing the ayahuasca, calling something in. And I don't know if I trust iTunes process for vetting who's whistling on what.
Right. Yeah.
But someday we'll do that.
What I heard, my other friends who had done Aya told me that there's native, like, most of my friends have done it in South America, but they said there was like natives that were playing native, native, that sounds awful, but South American folks who were playing native instruments native to their area. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh. So like organic music, and it's a very celebratory energy, and it's very like vibrant and alive, and music and celebration, and just like amazing view. That's what I was expecting was, and they say you shouldn't go into it with any expectations. So I was expecting this like, oh my God, beautiful, blissful, I'm connected to the heavens experience. And it was like, no, actually.
Well, you know what that
go to the shadow.
You know what? Also, there's a church here in LA that if you can get accepted, they do a ceremony every week, I think. I don't even know what church this is, but they have music. You have to sit up. They make you sit up, and you sit at this table, and they literally have musicians and everything, probably bringing in the highest vibration.
Yeah.
Which is probably, that's actually what that podcast is about, is the vibration of everything. And it probably is a protective higher vibration that this guy should have had.
Yeah, well, he did sing. That they called it singing, but it was like, it was this weird thing.
That's the one that I have that I just am like, it doesn't resonate with me at all.
Yeah, not me neither. I was like, that is not the vibration that I came. Yeah. So.
All right. Oh my God, I'm going to run out of battery. Is Shannon? I lost the plug to my Zoom, so every podcast lasts as long as the AA batteries I have in it.
No worries.
Shannon, you are amazing. Everyone, I want you to listen to that podcast and the other ones. Tell everyone where they can find you, if they want to watch you dancing on the beach, if they need to see photography, give them everything.
Sure. And oh my gosh, you're going to hate me for this, but it's actually Shanna.
Shanna, I'm so sorry.
Like banana. That's okay.
You should have told me in the beginning.
No, it's okay. But you know what? No, when I first moved to California in the mid 90s, and people called me Shauna, brah, and I was like, who's Shauna? But I kind of like Shauna better now. Anyway, Shanna's so Midwestern. Okay, so I am at Just Be Vibration, all one word, Just Be, B-E, vibration.com. That's my website. It needs a little bit of work, but hopefully it'll be repaired by the time this podcast. And you can make an appointment to talk to me there for a little consultation to see if I can help you. My photography is at my name, Shanna Gillette photography.com. So it's SHANNA GILLETTE, just like the razor, photography.com. I am on Facebook at same thing, just to be, facebook.com, just be vibration. Where
Instagram?
else? Oh, Instagram, I'm Lila Hum. So Lila Hum is also kind of like my YouTube character, and she kind of talks with an English accent sometimes. That's a whole nother, that's for another podcast. Lila Hum is LILA_HUM. On YouTube, I think it's the same thing, but it might be 2 M's because I think the other Lila was taken. I think that's it. Pretty sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. And I hope to have you on again because I think we could just talk forever. This was super fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I want you to be on my podcast too. I want to interview you soon as possible.
Anytime. Anytime. We'll hang up and I'll call you back.
Okay. Sounds great.
I know I said goodbye, but 2 things happen, which is, first of all, we're going to go 5 more minutes because Shanna, who I owe an apology to, Shanna is where she's going to tell us what she does because that was the surprise at the end when she said you can find out what I do. And also you felt the ayahuasca story was negative and you don't want to leave there.
Yeah, it wasn't negative, but I just kind of like, I think it's good to end on a more positive note.
Right. So let's tell everybody what you do.
So yeah, well, I started teaching yoga quite a few years ago, and then, as I mentioned, got into conscious movement and mindfulness. I think after many, many decades of like trying to process my own trauma, I guess, when I really kind of got into mindfulness and really started to be able to hear the thoughts and feelings that were happening inside of this incarnation currently called all 50 trillion cells of us, currently called Shanna.
Not Shannon, Shanna. Okay.
Yeah. And become aware of kind of the old tapes that we're playing. And it's a lot of vigilance and it's tough work, as we all know. But I now kind of just help people, guide people back to themselves to be able to hear those things. And I think, especially as women, I think a lot of us, we have such negative, and I hate to use terms like positive and negative, because it's all relative, but
program.
We do have a lot of negative programming, and we tend to be really hard on ourselves. And I also think that, especially right now, people can be so, I love that you are a comedian, by the way. Like, I think that people are so serious right now. And as seekers, sometimes we tend to be really serious, like we're doing all this work all the time. So, it's sort of a lighthearted kind of way of being able to look at ourselves and kind of look at our stuff and even look at our trauma. And it doesn't have to be painful.
Right. Right.
It can't all be light and fluffy, but I help to guide people through their own messaging, their old tape loops, and through movement, kind of organic movement that feels natural to them. So I'm not like making anybody do anything like super crazy strenuous if it doesn't, I used to teach chair yoga. So I tended to work with a lot of older people.
Right.
Who have a lot of chronic pain, and I have a lot of chronic pain stuff, so I can deal with that. But, and just kind of like rewire a lot of the messaging and, rewire a lot of the chronic pain stories, the victim stories, all the things that tend to come along with, life, and particularly if you've had a lot of trauma and stuff. And so, yeah, we kind of let it go through somatically through movement. And then we use affirmations and subconscious programming to kind of reprogram in some better, more positive, good stuff, because where we place our focus determines our reality, right? So there's great contrast, there's positive and negative in everything, and lots of gray in between. And it's really up to us and this goes back to the everything's on a colored spectrum of feeling tones things. Like, it's up to us which parts we want to place our focus on. So it's not ignoring the bad parts, but it's processing it all so that we can return back to a good balance, equanimity in between.
And I think that's the new therapy.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to break down and fall apart. And that's wonderful.
And you don't have, and you don't have to like sit in an office somewhere still. I've so much, it's been so beneficial for me to learn how to use my body to be able to move through stuff. And you don't have to, if that's not comfortable for you, but I think it really can be really beneficial I heard there was some African community, I don't know who or where this happened, but they basically hold troop of them came over to the United States. And when they found out that our therapy, quote unquote, is like sitting in a room talking about our problems, they were like, we're going back to Africa. Like, you don't have any dancing, you don't have any singing. You just sit in a room with a person and talk about your problems. Like, how does that help? You know, and that's how I feel about it too. It's a community effort, and you know, I've taught quite a lot of workshops and stuff with a lot of people, and there is something. I can't wait for COVID to be whatever it's going to be, so we can get back together. Because there's something beautiful about bringing a group of people together and all sharing these experiences. And especially, you know, again, for women, most of my classes tend to be women. I love men too, but to hear everybody be able to share their stories and to know that we're not alone. And I heard before COVID, I heard the same thing over and over again when I would ask people why they would come to my workshops, and they were like, well, I'm kind of lonely, and I feel depressed, I feel anxious, and I feel like I'm all alone in it. And then they would start to cry. And then the next person would say the same thing. And it's like, no, wait, we're all experiencing this. We're all going through dark parts, and we're not alone. And we don't have to go out and act like we're perfect. And we don't have to be all serious all the time. We can just, you know, all realize that we're going through all this together, and it's crazy, and it's a big symphony, and there's ups and downs, and
and there's other ways to get out from under the traditional ways that make my stomach turn. See, now I have a therapist right now that is so over the top, muscle testing, brainwave crap, all kinds of stuff, where it's almost rarely am I just sitting and talking. And it's this new stuff that is, I can't wait. I can't wait to do a movement thing with you. This is answers that, and people, I think, intuitively know this is right.
For sure. Yeah, I did. When I found conscious movement, I was just like, oh my, I was a big dancer too, but I was like, this is it. Like, this is the thing, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there, we did it. That's positive.
Thank you. Thanks for the extension a little bit. I was like, oh, I don't know if we want to leave on the ayahuasca weird story. No. But.
Yeah. Oh, we're laid back here. In fact, I'll probably ask Mike to chop off the earlier goodbye so that people don't turn it off. So, folks, what I'm saying right now is going to make no sense to you. But that's all right. We ended on a wonderful, positive note. And everybody, check out all of Shanna's stuff. It's going to be in the show notes. And I think we're good.
Yeah. Thank you again so much, Karen. You're so wonderful. I can't wait for you to be on my podcast.
I know. And I'll let everybody know. All right, honey, you have a good night. But thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Bye, everybody.